Welcome to the Back Office Podcast. I want to introduce you to Deke Cateau. Deke, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
We're really happy to have you, aside from the fact that we're proud to call you a client of LTC Ally. But I believe that all the listeners are really going to be blown away and be very impressed by what they hear today, because a lot of us have a misconception about not-for-profits, and we need to take everything that we know about non-for-profits. Some people think they're inefficient, they're fragmented, they don't really have a good management system, and they have to take everything that they have and throw it in the nearest trash can, because I think you guys are going to all learn from Deke of really what goes on in a smart non-for-profit. And if you could use some of the information that we're going to talk about here, guys, to understand how a non-for-profit can run efficiently, or at least use a component of a non-for-profit to make your organization run efficiently, I think it's going to be really helpful. And as way of introduction, I want to give you guys an introduction to who Deke is and kind of a little bit of his reputation. So I will start off by saying that Deke sits on more boards than you'll see at a Jackson Kiddish, and I'll explain to you just a couple. He advises Congress as part of HHS Secretary Becerra's board on NAPA for Alzheimer's and dementia. He's on the Moving Forward Steering Committee, LeadingAge National Board, who I just spoke with, and they're really proud to call him somebody that they're big fans of his. Governor Kemp from Georgia has him on the Guard Committee. He also wrote a best-selling book that we're going to talk about. So I think we're all really lucky to have you, Deke. And I hope I didn't flatter you too much by just dropping a couple of these pieces of background.
Yeah, you did not. And just for your listeners, these are all unpaid boards, so it's certainly not flattering. It is a lot of work, but I guess we'll get into that as we talk about nonprofits. That's sort of the difference in nonprofit leadership as well. So some of what we are here to do is to offer thought leadership and to offer at no charge our expertise and skills as an organization, and me as an operator to other nonprofit organizations.
I'm so happy you said that, Deke, because I think that really sets the tone for everything that we're going to talk about you. It's not paid. You're doing these things because you care. And I think that's going to be a running thread that we're going to see throughout the conversation, is that certain things you don't get paid for, you might not get reimbursed for, but if it's the right thing to do and it's something that you care passionately about, you are the type that will do it.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And more than me, I wouldn't want the focus to be on me. I am fortunate to work for an awesome organization. And as we speak about boards, I would say that every bit of this service is at the will of my governing body, my board of trustees. So they allow me to do that. In many cases, they pay the costs of me doing that, especially when it comes to travel. But again, that is part of the mission of the 120-year organization that I work for. So I am thankful to them for affording me that opportunity.
That's really special. And yes, we admire everybody on your team that's behind you. It's not a one-man show. And you mentioned you're 120 years, so let's congratulate you. Last week, you guys had a 120-year anniversary.
Yes, absolutely.
That is older than any skilled nursing facility group that we know of. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, so we're aging well, just like so many of our population.
There you go. There you go. Good segue.
Yeah.
So, Deke, before we get into AG Rhodes, your company, your history, and I think it would be beneficial for everybody to learn a little bit about you. I know you grew up in Trinidad and Tobago. From there to where you are now is a very vast space. And I'm going to guess that it probably wasn't just a breeze and you just jumped from one to the next and landed in this comfortable chair. Give us a little background and what went on.
Yeah, most certainly. I'm happy to take you back. Like you ended by alluding to, lots of hard work. But my journey started, many years ago, without giving out my age, or with giving it out, I would say just about 50 years ago in Trinidad and Tobago, where I was born, and migrated to the United States due to my wife. My wife was born in New York City. Thus in the United States, specifically in Georgia, started my journey into skilled nursing, into senior living. It was quite I wouldn't say by accident, but my wife actually got me into the industry, and I'm always thankful to her for that. She was a dietitian in a nursing home, still is a dietitian, but no longer in the nursing home.
Does she
And
work
she
for
had
AG Rhodes?
no, she does not.
Oh,
Does not. But we did work together for a long time for in a former company. And she always encouraged me to get into the business. She thought it was a business that was really built for my temperament. She thought I would enjoy working with the seniors, with the elders. And back then, I was really fascinated with the financial sector, which is where my foray was. Um, and eventually, she introduced me one day to the administrator and the business office manager in her nursing home, and that led to a job offer, which I accepted, and has
what
never really
position was
looked.
it?
I was actually a payroll manager in that nursing home, and then moved from payroll into human resources. Moved from human resources into a regional position. Then getting my administrator license in 2004, I think it was, and operating as an administrator within that organization for several years. Before becoming a regional for that, an area manager for that same organization, Five Star Quality Care was the name of the organization. Did a lot of great things there before being asked to move. I'd moved to the Savannah area with Five Star. And my former boss at AG Rhodes, Jerry Patney, is deceased now. He made me an offer. I guess he said an offer I could not refuse to move back to the Atlanta area and help run the Atlanta flagship, which was then undergoing a huge renovation, took that risk, moved my family back here, and I've been with Five Star ever since. First as an administrator for about 7 or 8 years, and then I moved into the head of strategy for the organization, and then I became the COO. February 1st, 6 years ago, was appointed CEO of this effulgent 120-year organization. So it's been a
Amazing.
journey. Like you said, it's been a heavy lift. It's been a lot of hard work. But I would say the most gratifying work I have ever done is working with seniors and working with some of the great people, some of the great CNAs, the LPNs. We just have a depleted but an awesome labor force. And I've met some of the most fascinating individuals with some of the most fascinating stories through this business. So I'll always be very grateful to it and to the organizations that have employed me.
That's really special. And just curious, at which point do you get the fancy pin? Do they give it to you when you become administrator? How does it work?
So this pin is you're gonna have to live a really long time because this pin is actually a 120th pin. So
Wow,
so
there you
so
go.
I would say to give you after 120 years. I got it a little bit earlier. Early.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
And it's really amazing how many positions you covered. And
yeah,
I'm curious from your perspective,
yeah,
do you think that that helps you relate and connect to your employees because they know you were in the trenches, you
yeah.
did a lot of these positions and you understand what they're doing and their job and their roles.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So on the staff relation level, the fact that I was a payroll manager and I was an HR manager, that really informed a lot of how I deal with staff relations to this day and how my organization does. We fully understand how important our labor force is, and this is not a COVID thing. It's something we've tried to practice well before COVID. In really showing our staff how we appreciate them, not just them, we appreciate their families, their kids' kids. Tomorrow, I'm going to be hosting a graduation ceremony, for example, and this ceremony is for the high school graduates of the staff's children and grandchildren who have graduated.
That's so
And we're also going
special.
to give out a scholarship to one of those lucky individuals as well. So it is a lot of our ethos, and I think me having come up through that human resources sort of realm has given me that real understanding that I've been able to see the needs and the burdens of a lot of our staff.
That's really special. Yeah, I could just imagine. Cannot believe that you're giving a scholarship to one of the children or grandchildren. That's something you only hear of from a non-for-profit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
And that's
so
a good
special.
part. Yeah, that's a big part of the difference. It's not like you said, some people assume naivety in the business line. It's absolutely not. But it's us doing some of these, I think, innovative and meaningful things that our mission dictates. that I think differentiates the sector, for profit and nonprofit.
That's really special. And I just want to also mention, probably worthwhile, is that from when you got into this industry until where you are, you mentioned that it started off with your wife telling you to get into it. So I
Yeah,
think we can give her credit
yeah,
for everything that's come along also, not only the team you work with.
yeah. And give me a lot of credit for listening to her, right?
You, it's harder when you're told. If she didn't
That's
tell
right.
you to do it,
Happy wife, happy life. That's right.
there you
That's right.
go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was basically how you got to where you are, and I know you mentioned that you're still going back to Trinidad sometimes. Your heart is still there, and it's something that is important to you as well.
Yeah, totally. My family, fortunately, I've raised my kids to understand that culture of the country that I was born in, and I still consider home. It is where I was born. My wife, I told you she was from New York, but what I did not tell you is the part of New York she was in. She was born in Brooklyn. It's very Trinidadian, very Caribbean. So she also espouses that culture, and both her parents were from Trinidad. So we've raised our kids sort of in that background. My son plays international soccer for the Trinidad and Tobago youth teams, taking advantage of his birthright to do so. And it is so important. It is who I am. And I think it's so important for us to be able to get anywhere in life. I think it starts with a firm grounding and an understanding and a comfort level in who you are and where you came from. And I'm fortunate. So many of the experiences I've had in life in Trinidad and Tobago were great. I'm grateful for. I went to school there. My elementary, secondary, and tertiary level education. That's the first place I worked. I was a student manager there. I lived on a medical sciences dormitory, which ironically now I see those influences in what I do now. So you never know where you're going without knowing where you came from, and I'm very proud of that Trinidadian background. And as you could hear, I still have a strong vestige of it in my accent.
Well, it's something very impressive, and you should be proud of it. And I'm sure you're inspiring a lot of people by knowing how far you can go if you believe in something and you work hard.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So AG Rhodes is the company that you
Mhm.
said 120 years. If I did my homework correctly, tell me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong. AG Rhodes was the first nursing home portfolio in Georgia. Does that make sense?
So we were one of the first. We're still not absolutely sure if we were the first. A lot of
There's
those
nobody old
records.
enough to prove you wrong.
Yeah, that's right. No, unless yes, unless someone's older. But we know for a fact that we were one of the first. And we are not just nursing homes. We're actually one of the first nonprofits in Atlanta. And our history, when dating back to 1904, really, if you look at the dates, it really aligns very firmly with the origins of Atlanta. In fact, our benefactor, Amos Giles Rhodes, he came to Atlanta to work on the railroads, which were then building this burgeoning city. So it makes sense for us to be so early into the game, so to speak.
And on that point, I did also learn in my research that your benefactor, Mr. Rhodes,
Yeah,
was actually in the furniture industry
yeah.
and he was contacted. What's the story
Yeah,
exactly?
yeah, yeah. So A.G. Rhodes, Amos Giles Rhodes, came to Atlanta, became a very successful businessman. Absolutely, the furniture industry. He is one of the people acknowledged as starting the sort of hire purchase where you buy furniture and pay as you go. And of course, back then in those days, 120 years ago, that was
That's
that was
unheard
like
of.
that was like manna, right? So he
Yeah.
became an extremely successful businessman, and he was approached by some individuals running basically an ailing poorhouse. The name of it was the Home for the Incurables back then, and we shudder to think about that now, but that's the names nursing homes had. They were places where
Yeah, things were very different those days. We wouldn't get away with
absolutely.
naming something like that now.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Mr. Rhodes was approached about replacing the roof on this ailing nursing home, and he responded to them that he would not put a dime into that ailing nursing home, but instead, what he proposed to do was to find them a piece of land, which he did, and build them a brand new nursing home. And that stood on Boulevard Avenue, the corner Boulevard and Woodward Avenue in Atlanta, Grand Park area. and it still stands there to this day. And that's the home that I ran for 7 years. So really wonderful legacy of his to have done that, especially in a time like this when we talk about, sort of the ailing nursing homes of today, right? That need so much structural work. So it's almost like we're going back in time with that. But great story. His antecedents, his generations of his family have rarely ran the organization since. So my current board chair is the great 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 grandson of Amos Giles Rhodes, and his father before him, and his father before him. So we're really run with that sort of familial approach to it. But as well, business minded in the sense that David Perdue, who's my board chair, and all of our board of trustees, many of them are very successful business people. So they bring that business minded approach to what is a magnificent mission dating back 120 years. And the
That's the
twain
balance
just
that you guys always
that's the
have.
balance. Absolutely,
It's
that's
amazing.
totally the balance. Yes.
But
Yep.
like you said, you guys started with such a good from such a good source. It just
Yes.
got off to such a beautiful way.
Yep.
That's really nice.
Certainly. Certainly.
So some of the uniqueness I was talking
Mhm.
about that I know about from what AG Rhodes does
Mhm.
that is really unique in the industry, especially coming from our clientele, which are in the
Mhm.
for-profit world, is you guys made a very daring decision to
Yeah.
change the layouts in your facilities to
Yeah.
be fully private rooms, even for the Medicaid population. It doesn't make a difference. You guys
Yeah.
felt out of dignity, this is
Yeah.
the right way to do it, even though that means one room
Yeah.
cannot be occupied by one person,
Yeah.
technically cutting reimbursement in half.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you guys thinking?
Yeah, so we started that sort of downsizing several years ago, at least 7 or 8 years ago, and that was for two reasons. One, like you said, obviously to honor the dignity of the age and experience of our elders, but another big one was just the consumer demand, the market demand, the reality that we started seeing is that most people, including you and I, want that choice to be able to live in a private accommodation. There are many people who, of course, would want to live with someone else, but what we saw that being the minority. So we started so that reduction in bed inventory, and it got to a point when we really had to take stock of ourselves and say, this is not sustainable. Which is part of what led to our massive expansion at our Cobb location, where we simply rebuilt 72 units in the neighborhood style, obviously spurred on as well by some of the ravage that what happened because of COVID, particularly for people living in shared accommodations. We rebuilt that entire campus, 72 beds dedicated to individuals living with dementia, all living in households of 12 individuals, all with private rooms. Really an awesome site. Every day I tour individuals there and they're like they've never seen anything like that in the nursing home. I've had surveyors in our home recently that said they have never seen anything like this. And what's more important about that population living in those nursing homes, in that nursing home, is the majority of them are on Medicaid. The vast majority of them are on Medicaid. So this is certainly for the indigent. It's a model that's not built for the super wealthy, and nothing's wrong with models for the super wealthy. But we take our mission very, very seriously. And our mission is to care for those underserved populations. We are very concerned with health equity, particularly in a city like Atlanta, where we have so much issues with that. And what we've offered with this new project is sort of our solution to it from the senior living perspective.
And it's so special because, like you said, there's dignity there, and it's something that you really feel strongly about. But I would challenge you because I know you've mentioned
Yeah,
that your policy is no margin, no mission, which I
absolutely.
love,
Yeah,
and I want to start using that in conversations.
yeah,
But with that, I think you guys are ahead of the curve. You said people prefer to have a private room when the biggest challenge people are trying to do is build up census and
yeah,
get my facility to be considered over others. There's also a business aspect that this is what people want. The
yeah,
neighborhood
totally.
style, yes, it's
Yeah,
not ideal maybe for
yeah,
spreading everything exactly, but this is what people want. This is their
yeah,
preference, and you guys are ahead of the curve,
yeah.
so to say, in that aspect.
Yeah. So yeah, no margin, no mission. Ironically, that's I like the fact that you like it, but it's an old, almost cliche nonprofit mantra, but it holds so true. Because if you don't have a strong business model, you're not going to be able to fulfill that mission. There are not enough philanthropic dollars out there in most communities to fill that gap totally. So we have to have a quite astute business model. In our case, yeah, absolutely. Us in looking forward demographically at our nation, if you look at what's about to explode in our nation by 2050, you're looking at a quarter of our population being over 65. If you look at incidences or cases of individuals living with dementia, you're talking, worldwide about a triple to 30 million, and in the United States about to double, to something like 10 or 12 million. So this is of an epidemic nature. So we like to see ourselves with a visionary style. The way we look at it, we look at Blue Waters, we look at our sector, and we look at it in A.G. Rhodes' way, as sort of what we call a blue ocean strategy for it. Too much of our industry is boggled down with competition, with copying what individuals are doing and not looking forward. And they've sort of muddied the water, right? So they're living in those red, bloody waters that we eat each other, daily. And we kind of look further upstream, kind of beyond the horizon, and we see those blue waters as being ready for us to charter and go further with. And investing in the aging population, investing in nursing homes is a big part of that. So we are very bullish about it. We absolutely think that is the way to go. We see the demographics, like I just said, completely supporting that and completely supporting us going in that direction. But we have to go in that direction in a different way. We have to admit and understand that it's time for a change in our nursing homes and in the design of our nursing homes. Not unlike hospitals, went through a decade ago, where they got rid of all their wards, and now, hospital is a very hospitable, for want of a better word, environment. Similarly, we too have to change the environments of our nursing homes. So we're happy to have sort of charted that, put our stake in the ground and be one of the first to step out there to do it for individuals who are underserved. And we have it here in the community as a replicable model, right? This is not something we're holding on to, or trying to put a copyright on. We're here to share openly, because I think as more individuals adopt this model, it will be better for the industry. And then we look at different models, right? Housing in itself is going to change. It's going to take different forms. So, 10 years from now, we'll be looking at even different models than we do today. And that's just the evolution of any business. And A.G.
That's
Rhodes is
kind of
happy to start it.
yes, and I think your analogy of looking at the blue ocean and not really
Yeah,
getting caught up in what it
yeah,
is exactly that understanding and that approach.
yes,
Uh, if I'm a listener right now,
yeah,
I'm thinking to myself, this sounds really pretty. You
yeah.
guys are doing such good things,
Mhm.
but this is not a model that I could sustain as a for-profit. What would you say to a listener about thinking about the idea of I'm a for-profit business, but maybe I should take a component of my business, maybe certain projects that I know I'm not getting reimbursed on, I know are not going to work for me in my current business model.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity for a facility owned by a for-profit company to consider a component of it to be
Yeah.
non-for-profit?
Um, Absolutely there is, but I want to push back a little bit there. Um, I don't understand why a for-profit
Feel
would
free to
not.
challenge me. That's what it is.
I
It's a
mean,
conversation.
I don't understand why this would not be a model for a for-profit. I mean, by nature of the business lines of a for-profit, there is opportunity for, in fact, a larger opportunity for financial investment to do projects like this. It's an investment that, yeah, may not yield what's wanted or what's needed right now, but certainly in the future would yield it. That's the whole.
100%.
Yeah, so I absolutely think these blue oceans are wide open to for-profits. In fact, that's how the oceans get muddied. Because a lot of times when you see the innovators do it, then everyone copies it, right? So all of a sudden, then the other groups are able to do this, right? Because they see revenue lines have opened, and they're doing it. So I see no barriers for for-profits doing it. I am not a proponent of kind of what you suggested with, like the for-profit starting a non-profit to, that honestly for me it sounds a little nefarious. That has to be done. We are a mission-driven non-profit that started with a particular mission. So not saying for-profits can't go into that side of it, but you have to be driven by the importance of that mission. If you're not driven by the importance of that mission, you fall into that category with a lot of the bad actors in this industry, who some of them are doing exactly that, and that's not a good thing. And I am a proponent that the industry needs to weed out a lot of those bad actors that are getting into the mission game for the margin reason,
That's
right?
so interesting. I didn't even know that existed, but
Yeah,
I hear your point,
yeah,
and I understand that for all really a for-profit business needs to think is long term. All these things that you guys have done are
yeah,
really investments.
yeah,
They're investments that if you look towards the future, again, you have to be driven by mission and
yeah,
you have to care. But if you're
yeah,
doing it and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's going to
yeah,
result beneficially
yeah.
for everybody, even your bottom line.
Steve, I'll give you a good example. And this was the early 2000s. We as an organization invested in an electronic medical record, right, which was unheard of then. A little company called PCC. We were one of their first North American users, right? That was an
Wow.
investment for the reality and the good of understanding that, the portability and the ability to be nimble with the medical record is important for the health system. So fast forward several years later, when this was required by the Affordable Care Act for nursing homes to adopt, right, right. I mean, every single for-profit nursing home chain in this nation took took win, and they did it, right?
Of course.
So why could that have not been done previously?
You're absolutely right.
It's a dedication to innovation and a dedication to doing things to improve the quality of care for our nation's elders. That's the sole purpose. I don't care if you're a for-profit or you're a non-profit. If your mission and your end product, your end means is not to give the best quality care to the elders in our nation, you're in the wrong business. That has to be the driving goal. If not, then you should go open grocery stores or some other commodity type service.
Well said. That's very powerful and very, very true for anybody in the industry should definitely realize that. And hopefully they do. Like you said, there are bad actors, but we
Yeah,
believe that most are in here for the right reasons.
absolutely. Yes.
And you talk about that mission and that idea that AG Rhodes has, and there are so many other things that AG Rhodes does because of caring with the horticulture program that you
Hmm.
have,
Yeah.
which for those that aren't familiar, the seniors are getting comfortable with planting and taking care of different vegetation and
Yeah.
the other programs that you have with real music
Music therapy.
therapy.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's something, it's a differentiator on
Yeah.
the business side, but it
Yeah.
really does help the seniors. And what do you see from results based on
Yeah.
those,
Yeah,
projects?
and this is where I think the sort of business acumen of a for-profit could come in. So I can say categorically, in my years, which we spoke before in this industry, that I have seen no more transformative programs than horticulture therapy and then music therapy. I have literally seen and heard testimonials from families that it has kept their loved one alive. Mom would have died years ago were it not for this program. You've given her reason to live. You've given him meaning to life, and we see it every day. And it's become a core part of what we do because of that. What we are not good at is the collecting of the data behind it. And often I tell people it's because we're in the business of caring for people, right? We're not in the business of data collection. We're getting better at it. And we have to get a lot better at it. So we're partnering with educational organizations and others to sort of prove that point. I just did a huge piece of work with the Eden Alternative on the business case for person-directed care, for example, where we uncovered through data, through empirical means, through quality status, the reason to do this, and that's where I think a for-profit would have a strong background, in understanding that and understanding and being first to analyze and really get that data to a point of refinement that now you can go to a payer, to a advantage care, to a insurance company and say, hey, here's my product. it's giving people, X length of of life. It's extending life. It's giving quality of life. It's keeping people out of the hospital. It's that's the side of it that I think us AG Rhodes and many others who foray into sort of these person-directed initiatives need to get better at.
But you see it with your own eyes. You know that it's helping them. You
Yeah,
don't need data to prove it to you,
yeah,
but you're saying in regards to showing it to others to
yeah.
convince them of it.
Absolutely. It's what I would want for my mom. And I tell folks that should be kind of the be all and the end all. I have a loved one who raised my daughters that lives in one of my communities. And people ask me why you did that. And that's why. And it's the same thing I would want for my mom. So that to me is sort of the empirical side to me, but we have to do a better job at packaging that business case and pushing it out there to the community and letting them see the business case for it.
I like that litmus test. If you want to have your family member get
Yeah,
this kind of level of service, that is exactly what you should be providing.
absolutely, absolutely.
So if we can move over onto general industry points, which I know are
Yeah,
some of the top topics that are very hot topics now that people
yeah,
are feeling the pain of. And I know that, Deke, you have particular approach to it that some people don't. And I think it'd
yeah,
be very interesting for others to hear.
yeah,
The staffing shortage that's going on
yeah,
now and the mandate that's trying
yeah,
to be pushed through.
yeah,
Some people have the feeling of, why are you requiring us to have so much staff? I don't
yeah,
think that's your approach, and I think it would
yeah.
be interesting for people to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am in favor of more staff. And this is where I would defend the industry. I'm yet, today I was on the phone with one of the larger nursing home owners in this country, and just, talking about life and other things. And he's of the same opinion. We all want more staff. I mean, I think that's again, if you don't want to properly care for our seniors, you shouldn't be in this industry. So I want more staff. I think most people do want more staff. The reality is we have a supply issue for
Of
many
course.
reasons, not the least of which we have to take a responsibility for, in that how we have treated our staff, particularly prior to COVID. A lot of that's come back to haunt us. But then we also have a reality of staffing shortages, not just in this industry, but throughout. We have a reality that we are a society that was built in many cases on the fruits of immigration and people coming to work in this country in different industries and different sectors. You look at the agricultural sector, you look at the hospitality sector. It is a reality. And we have had a lot going on, from the political side and other sides that have really stagnated some of that growth. You look at the bare demographic reality. Well, the reason I said that by 2050 a quarter of our population is stable to be over 65 is because those younger than 65, that group is shrinking. It's shrinking for demographic reasons beyond our control. People are not having babies as much as they did before. Other individuals are living longer. So we are faced with that reality. And a lot of that has caused this supply issue that we have. So my issue with the mandate, quite simply is timing. One, you cannot issue a mandate in a period of staff shortage like this. It's going to be a mandate that's impossible to full. That's like setting your kids up to do a task that they're not going to be not going to be able to do. The other thing about it, where staffing is concerned, we just spoke about horticulture therapy, music therapy, all of these things that I know give so much better quality of life to individuals. I know keeps individuals out of the hospital. So the mandate as proposed mentions nothing about these ancillary staff, mentions nothing about our activity staff that are doing such a great job in our homes, mentions nothing about our LPNs that are doing such a great job. So I think any staffing mandate should take that into consideration. A big reason for some of the mandate, obviously, is just having individuals to really observe and take care of our seniors, to ensure that there's no neglect of our seniors in those cases. Well, you come to one of my horticulture therapy sessions or my music therapy sessions, and you're going to see 10, sometimes 20 individuals being given specific attention to, being cared to, being taken care of,
That's so
right?
special.
Yeah, but it's also important time being spent with them that is not considered in that mandate. So my views on the mandate are that without dealing with the supply issue, you're doing absolutely nothing with it.
But you do
There's
feel that the mandate is something that should be there because you do feel that there should be a strong staffing when the timing is right. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and there's one now. That's what the other people don't realize. We have staffing minimum. There's a staffing
Of
mandate
course.
right
Right.
now that we adhere to, and we actually do a pretty good job at that. So again, the concept of a mandate, I have no problem with. What I
Right.
have a problem with is this mandate, as proposed, is short-sighted in who it is basically acknowledging as staff, and it's CN and it's LP and it's RNs mainly, and then a sprinkle of CNAs. It's not acknowledging any of the other groups that
Right.
we know staff our nursing homes. And I'll tell you something, Steve. All that's going to happen is providers are resilient. They'll, we are pliable. All that's going to happen is services like I just mentioned, horticulture therapy, music therapy, activities department. What do you think is going to happen in order to meet the mandate?
That is a sad effect. It's going
They're
to
going to
get
cut.
cut, and those
They're
are the
going to cut
first
those
things that are
services.
going to be taken off the roster,
Absolutely, yeah.
which
So so
it should not happen.
Absolutely. So that's my issue with the mandate as written. But having staffing and mandate is a bad word. Let's just say it. I think it's a it's almost like the word punish, right?
Almost like home
Um,
for the incurable.
right. It's like home for the incurables. Staffing minimum standards. Let's call it that.
Right.
Absolutely. There should be. There are now. Maybe they need to be adjusted, but we should
Right.
always have minimum standards as we talk about caring for our nation's most vulnerable.
And during COVID, you wrote this book,
Yeah.
Brushfire,
Yeah.
bestseller on Amazon, and I
Yeah.
think you touched on some of the staffing issues at that point. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah,
What do you write
completely.
about? What's the idea that people can walk away with on that?
Yeah, so the book is in some ways a memoir. In a large part, it was me, quite simply documenting what nursing homes went through during COVID. In the face of all the vilification and we were bad and all the deaths, we were really the targets. But I wanted to tell the story from the side of the nursing home and the nursing home staff who had to live through COVID, who prior to COVID. Remember, no one called nursing home staff essential workers. We were not seen as essential workers.
Right.
I have lived through storms in the state of Georgia where hospital staff and hospital nurses were seen as essential staff and given priority and be picked up by the police and other officials and taken to work, and nursing homes were left, to cross our fingers. There were hurricanes in this nation that happened. Now, all of a sudden, during COVID, we became essential staff. So I wanted to tell the story from the perspective of our essential staff, who I call our heroes during COVID. And that was my
Absolutely.
main reason for writing the book. And actually, every dime of the proceeds actually go to our scholarship fund. So you spoke about how we're able to
There we
give those
go.
scholarships. Every dime of the proceeds went and continue to go to them because they're the ones, I would say, the unsung heroes. And that's the name of the book, right? COVID-19, Brushfire, COVID-19, and our nursing homes. And it's dedicated to the frontline workers whose story I pray that we never forget the story of those frontline workers. I understand the story of the residents that died, which is the most painful side of it, the amount of loss, human loss that we had, which is so painful and so unfortunate, and there's no way we could minimize it. And a lot of it is because of the build and construction of our nursing homes. But we also need to remember the staff cases, the human cases. I lost a good friend, a staff member, one of our staff members, Natisha Harden, a nurse, who passed away during COVID, contracted COVID, and passed. The mental stress and anguish that our staff still go through to this day that they have not forgotten. I call it PTSD. And we seem to be quickly willing to walk away from that as an industry, forgetting what just happened 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's really disheartening to think about, and like you said, they're still affected today from it. Everybody is all the frontline workers, and I would even add, if I can,
Yeah,
those that are not in the front line, they're working in the office, they're working on
totally,
other areas in the facility. They all
totally,
help that plane fly, and they were
totally,
coming in and showing up, and
totally.
it's definitely unsung heroes, and
Yeah,
it's wonderful that you recognize them.
yep, totally, 100%. Yep.
Moving into other areas that are very significant in our industry and are affecting everybody. Survey delays and all the complications that come
Yeah.
up, both on having your facility get the star rating it deserves, getting the managed care payers to
Yeah.
recognize your facility that way, and all the
Yeah.
fallout that happens from that.
Yeah.
It's such a pain point for facilities.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that? Are you feeling that
Yeah.
pain?
Yeah.
And what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So we organizationally are feeling that pain. Just as we talk about staffing shortages in nursing homes, and sort of the governmental antidote for that is a mandate. Similarly, our survey and recertification system is having, and has for the last decade had, massive staffing issues. Um, I hadn't heard about any mandate for that. Um,
No.
but because of that, we have nursing homes waiting, in our case, in excess of 2 years to get a survey. We have nursing homes that may have had unsatisfactory surveys and have to wait over 2 years to get cleared, right? So the system has become, in that aspect, in that survey aspect, I think, overly punitive. And then talk about punitive. Even before that, just the process of survey, um, our survey process, our survey system, was already seen as punitive. I've been through so many surveys, more than I could remember, and I know I still get that churny feeling in my stomach. And I have CNAs that go through that, nurses that go through that. It is an awful experience, I'll defend surveyors in the sense that I think it's a system that they work in, but it was designed um, to be punitive, and it was designed to get people scared. It's almost like a police state we've created in nursing homes, and I could tell you that during the survey process, nursing home staff are not operating at their optimal
No, they're
standard
shaking in their boots. They're scared.
because they're
Any of our
shaking in their
clients,
boots. Yes,
administrators, anybody that's going through
yes,
survey, they're
yeah.
like, okay, please understand anything I do wrong, I'm going through
That's right.
survey now. So please
That's right.
forgive me for
Yeah.
anything.
That's right. You have someone over you watching you do everything. That's when you're gonna make mistakes, right? You're prone to make those mistakes. So I think we need, just like I am honest enough to admit that a lot of work has to be done on the provider side, on the nursing home side, to
Right.
really right a lot of the wrongs that have happened. We providers need to accept responsibility, right? We did a lot of things wrong. We need to do better. Similarly, I think our regulatory system needs to understand they've done a lot wrong too, and they need to do better. You mentioned sort of the payer system now, sort of what I call in general the privatization of Medicare, right?
Yep.
We we see what's happening with that, right? It is a unfortunate consequence of that, right? Because now we're playing with the pennies. Is that um, care, in so many cases, appropriate and proper care is being held back from our nation's seniors for purely financial reasons. All right. Those are going to have negative consequences. Who bears those negative consequences? Does the payer bear those negative consequences? No.
It's the
The,
perfect
the,
storm where the
the
payer doesn't
provider
have
and the
to.
resident. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So all I am asking for, and I speak about this in the book as well, all I'm asking for is as we look at our system, I'm proud of the work I'm doing with the Moving Forward Coalition, because that's what we're looking at, right? We're looking at the system, not just nursing homes, right? It's not just the providers to blame. We have systemic problems in our nursing home structure, and it's because we have a structure that was designed to operate nursing homes that started as the incurables, right? Then it moved to these quote unquote rehab, centers, and it's changing now, and we have to go back to put in sort of the home in nursing home. We have to understand this aspect of health equity that I mentioned. We have to understand the important part. If you look at the social determinants of health, right?
Yep.
You're going to see housing as a huge part of that. So as our seniors age, we have to look at that, and that's the piece where the nursing home comes in and can be useful if we redesign I'll use a stronger word, if we overhaul our system, and that's what the system needs to be overhauled.
And would you agree? Absolutely. I understand absolutely that it needs to be
Yeah,
overhauled. It needs to be
yeah,
changed. Things that worked 100 years ago are not going to work today.
yeah,
And the overhaul, would you agree, should be focused on quality, should be focused on initiatives that actually are helping the residents.
yeah,
And if that is the focus and we kind of work backwards from there, how do we get that in a way
yeah,
that works instead of policing people,
yeah,
punishing them,
yeah,
put it in a focus on quality?
yeah. Yeah, quality improvement, I think, is a huge part. I think there are pieces to this regulatory puzzle that work. The federal government, in its wisdom, set up the quality improvement organizations many years ago to assist in quality. I know in the case of Georgia, they have done a great job, at least the QIOs I've worked with. I think we need to work to insert them earlier on in that puzzle, and it may be during the regulatory process as well, right? We need to think about that. I also think, as we talk about this quote unquote overhaul, I think we need to understand, and I'll go back to what we joked about earlier: happy wife, happy life. As I have learned to run nursing homes, I'm gonna tell you, happy staff, happy resident. The Eden Alternative has what we call our golden rule: do unto the staff as you would have them do unto the resident. And I think we being, again, everyone from the government, from the pay structure, from the providers, I think we have undervalued our staff. We have operated in this vicious circle where we have said, and I've been told this, I've been taught this: the resident is always right, and the staff then is always they've always
Not
become wrong,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
we create these structures, this sort of hierarchical system where the residents on top, where they should be, right? But the staff are like way down on the bottom of that. So as we elevate our staff, as we learn to treat our staff and care for our staff, and not just them, like I said, their family, that's why the living wage is so important, so they could take care of their family. And as we care about them and elevate them, I think that the natural consequence of that is also going to be better quality care for our elders.
100%. And, sometimes, like you mentioned, there could be the conflict resident to staff, but a lot of the times there's just so much focus you could put on staff just because it makes sense. Keep them happy at what they're doing. They'll enjoy what they're doing, and that will spread onto the residents naturally. I
Yeah,
know in our business, our focus is keeping our employees happy because that keeps our clients happy. It's a natural
absolutely.
result
Yeah,
of how it works.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
human nature. It's
Yeah.
not even business. It's
Yeah,
human nature.
it's the ecosystem of of life, right? It's like you said, it's human nature.
Okay. So I think we covered a lot of topics here that I
Mhm.
think would be very, very helpful for a
Yeah,
lot of people to think about and kind of rewire some of the things that they may have had preconceived notions about.
yeah,
And if we could all relax now, we're going to get to a game. Deke, if you're open for it.
let's play.
What's your opinion on AI, Deke?
Um, love hearing about it and using the word. I think we don't know enough about it. I know I don't know enough about it. And most providers I speak to, I think, are faking that knowledge. I think
Oh, you're so right. Everybody
yeah,
likes to use it because it's a hot word,
yes,
but
yes.
nobody's doing it.
Right, exactly, exactly. And
So
it's scary, right? Look at what happened with the which could have had nothing to do with AI, but look at what happened with the airport system and the
yes, with
shutdown the other
the
day.
big shutdown.
Absolutely. That gets me afraid for reliance
Technology.
on technology, which is what AI is part of, right? It's part of a technology explosion. And afraid not of the reliance, I should say, but afraid of the over reliance without having a backup.
That's 100% true. And I want to make you feel good that I found a way for AI to be helpful in
Okay.
our industry. And
Okay.
the way it is for our game. So
Yes.
I asked AI a bunch of questions
Uh-huh.
and it surveyed all the information that's online to tell me what the world opinion is on certain things. Are they good or are they not good?
Okay.
So we're going to play a game called Keep It or Can It. Keep It means
Okay.
it's good. Can It means it's not good. I'm going to
Okay.
ask you the questions and I'll tell you how you marked based on what AI says the entire world feels.
Okay.
So no
Oh my
pressure.
gosh. Okay.
No pressure. And they're not nursing home or skilled nursing facility related. They're
Good.
general stuff. So
Good.
we'll start with one. Remote work, keep it or can it?
Keep it.
Keep it. Motivational quotes on people's office walls.
Can it.
Can it? Trade show giveaways.
Can it.
Can it? The need to say on a company greeting, our menu options recently changed.
Can it.
Can it? My newest pet peeve is when people say X, formerly known as Twitter. Do we need to say that?
Keep it. Keep it. Keep it. Keep it. Keep it.
Okay, so we went through 5. I'll just let you know how you marked so far.
Yeah.
You got 3 out of 5 correct.
Woo woo.
I'm hoping the next 5 you're gonna score all the way down the line.
The good thing is I know which 3 I got right too, right? That's the good thing. So I'm
Yeah?
just playing fair. I'm just playing fair. Yeah.
I appreciate you trying to balance it out here.
Yeah.
Sleeping with 2 pillows, keep it or can it?
Keep it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Social media, keep it or can it?
Keep it.
AI says can it. The word donut should go back into Dunkin'.
Can it.
The world says keep it.
Oh my gosh.
Phone screen protectors, if you already have a case, do you need the screen protector too?
Keep it.
Can it?
Oh, crazy.
And finally,
Your
this
phone's
one I
gonna
think
break.
and this one I think you're gonna get right, just judging by me looking at you right now. Neckties, keep them or can them?
Can them.
You are 100% correct. Deke, thanks for having a good time with us today.
Man, thank you so much, Steve.
It was really a pleasure, and I'm really honored that you were able to join us. And I know everybody listening is really going to benefit from this. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to connecting.
Thank you, and keep up the great work. Just illuminate us as the industry. Let's get the good and the bad out there and move forward in the right way.
I'm in. Thanks so much, Deke.
Thank you, Steve.
All righty, take care.
Take care.